My mother-in-law asked for my ring with a soft voice and witnesses nearby. I unclasped the box and slid it across the table, already knowing she was holding the wrong gold. The real one sat wrapped in paper towels behind cleaning supplies, swapped after midnight. She promised to bring it back polished by morning. What she did not expect was the jeweler calling me first, reading a serial number out loud that proved which ring never left the store. I kept my smile small and polite. My coffee was cooling by my right hand, and the kitchen clock over the stove blinked 7:16. The corner of the kitchen table dug into my forearm the way it always did when I leaned too hard. I rubbed my thumb over the scratch on my wedding band finger. No ring there, just skin and a pale line. Don't touch what isn't yours, Carol. That was what I wanted to say. Instead, I smoothed the stack of mail like it could keep me quiet. Coupons, a water bill, a postcard from a dentist conference I never attended. My mother-in-law, Carol, watched my hands more than my face. My husband, Eric, stood by the sink, rinsing a cereal bowl that did not need rinsing. He did that when he wanted to disappear without leaving the room. Carol's purse sat open on the chair beside her. Leather, heavy hardware, the kind of bag that could swallow a whole life and still look neat. You know how oils build up, she said, voice sweet. I have a jeweler who actually knows what he's doing. Mine knows what he's doing, I said, still calm. Carol tilted her head, like my words were a child's drawing. Lena, I'm trying to help you. A ring like that deserves care. A ring like what? I asked, and I hated how polite it sounded. Eric set the bowl in the drying rack with a soft clack. He did not turn around. Carol reached across the table and tapped the velvet box with one finger. Tap, tap, like a metronome, like a warning. Just for cleaning, she said. I'll bring it back before noon. I nodded once. That nod cost me more than my first car payment. At 7:35, I grabbed my tote bag and my lunch container from the fridge. Turkey sandwich, baby carrots, a little plastic cup of ranch. Normal things. I kissed Eric's cheek, felt him flinch like he expected an argument. Text me when she gets back, I said. Eric's eyes flicked to Carol, then to the floor. Okay. Mark it. Carol lifted the velvet box and slid it into her purse. The zipper closed with a clean sound that made my throat tighten. On my way out, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. A dental office manager with a pressed blouse, a neat ponytail, and nothing on her left hand. I closed my fingers into a fist so no one could see them shake. The moment I got into my car, I exhaled hard enough to fog the windshield. The air smelled like the cinnamon gum I kept in the console for stressful afternoons. I popped one piece and chewed until my jaw ached. I did not drive straight to work. I drove to my street's corner gas station and parked under a buzzing light. I pulled my phone from my purse with one hand, keys still pinched in the other. My fingers hovered over the jeweler's number like I was about to touch a hot stove. Last night, I had written it down on the back of an old receipt. I had smoothed that receipt flat on the kitchen table corner. I had watched the ink soak in, slow and permanent. I called. It rang twice. Park Ridge Jewelry, a man answered, businesslike. This is Lena Herrera, I said. I need to confirm something. A pause. A click like he shifted the receiver. Yes, ma'am. I kept my voice steady, even in my car with no witnesses. If someone brings in a ring for cleaning, do you log it in under their name? We log it under the name on the intake, he said, and we log the serial number if it's on file. I swallowed. If I already brought my ring in last week, would you have that serial number? We would, he said, and his tone changed, just a shade. Like he understood the question underneath my question. I stared at the steering wheel, stitching. Can you read it to me? End quote. I can confirm it to you if you tell me what we have, he said, cautious. I felt my shoulders loosen a fraction. That caution was a good sign. It meant procedure. It meant he could not be charmed by Carol. I'm coming in after work, I said. 5:30. Bring photo identification, he replied, and any paperwork you have. I have it, I said, though my paperwork was not on paper. Not yet. I ended the call and sat there with my phone in my lap. The buzzing light above my car made the windshield look like it was underwater. I could have gone back home. I could have demanded my ring, real or fake. I could have made a scene right there in my kitchen with Eric between us, like a cheap divider. Instead, I drove to the dental office and walked in at 7:58, exactly 2 minutes before my first patient check-in. I turned on the front desk computer, opened the appointment schedule, and did what I always did when my life felt unstable. I followed rules. At 10:20, between insurance calls and a patient complaining about a copay, my phone vibrated. A text from Eric. "Mom says you're being dramatic. She's just helping." I read it twice. Then I set my phone face down on the desk like it was contaminated. At noon 15, another text. "She's running errands. Be home around 4. Running errands. With my wedding ring in her purse. Or what she thought was my wedding ring. At 3:40, I left the office with my tote bag cutting into my shoulder. The winter air stung my cheeks. My breath came out in short bursts I could not control. I drove home and walked straight to the kitchen sink. I turned on the faucet. Cold water, loud. I opened the cabinet under the sink and moved a bottle of dish soap, then a box of trash bags. Behind the cleaning supplies, tucked in the back, was a stamped envelope. Thick paper, an embossed stamp that caught the light. My name written in my own careful handwriting. I slid it out with 2 fingers, like it might bite me. I did not open it. I just held it and listened to the house. The refrigerator hum, the distant click of the heating vent, my own breath. Then the front door opened. Carol's heels clicked down the hallway with a confident rhythm. Eric's shoes followed, softer, like apology. Carol walked into the kitchen and set her purse on the table corner. She smiled at me like we were sharing a secret. "I have it," she said, and her hand went for the zipper. The envelope stayed hidden against my palm under the counter. Then her phone lit up on the table, and I saw the caller label, Park Ridge Jewelry. Carol didn't even flinch when her phone rang. She just smiled wider, like the world was obeying her. I kept the stamped envelope pressed against my thigh under the counter. My fingers traced the raised edge of the embossed stamp, slow and steady, while Eric hovered by the fridge like he could melt into it. Carol tapped her screen and answered on speaker. "Hello?" A man's voice came through, crisp and careful. "This is Park Ridge Jewelry. May I speak with Lena Herrera?" Carol's smile froze for half a second. Then she laughed, light and fake. "Oh, that's my daughter-in-law. I'm with her. I'm handling her ring." There was a pause. I heard paper shift on the other end, like someone turning a page. "Ma'am," the man said, "I need to speak with Lena directly." Eric's eyes flicked to me, wide and pleading. Carol held the phone out like a plate of food she expected me to accept. I took it. My hand didn't shake this time. "This is Lena," I said. "Thank you," he replied. "I wanted to confirm your 5:30 appointment. And I need to note, we cannot release or accept items without your identification." Carol's face tightened. "We have identification." "Lena's identification," he said, calm. "In person. I'll be there," I said. I ended the call and set the phone down on the kitchen table corner. The screen went dark, and the room felt brighter in a bad way. Carol leaned forward. "So," she said, voice sharpened, "you went behind my back." I smoothed the envelope seam under the counter with my thumb. "I made a phone call." "You're acting like I'm a criminal," she snapped. Eric stepped closer. "Mom, just—" Carol lifted her palm at him. "Stop. Silence. Control." I turned to Eric. "Did you know she took it?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. The answer was in his face. "I'm trying to keep this family together," Carol said, "and you're making it ugly." I looked at her purse, still open on the chair. The zipper teeth glinted like a grin. 2 customers could have walked in right then and heard everything. Carol didn't care. She liked witnesses, even in my kitchen. At 4:45, I drove to Park Ridge Jewelry with the envelope on the passenger seat. I didn't open it. I just kept it flat, like a promise I refused to break early. My gum was gone, so I chewed on the inside of my cheek instead. Eric followed me in his car after a quiet argument that wasn't really an argument. Carol insisted on riding with him. I watched her climb in, purse on her lap, posture perfect, like she was going to a luncheon. By 5:20, the jewelry store windows glowed against the winter dusk. Warm light, white displays, a little sign by the door that said, "Repairs and cleanings, drop off by 5. I parked, checked my hair in the rearview mirror, and rubbed my bare ring finger once over the scratch line the band used to hide. Serial number means more than your smile. That line ran through my head like a metronome. Inside, the store smelled like lemon cleaner and velvet. A glass counter ran along the front, and a small line formed near the register. 2 women in puffy coats stood shoulder to shoulder, whispering. A man with a watch box waited, shifting his weight. Public, bright, nowhere to hide. Carol walked in behind me like she owned the tile under our feet. Eric came last, hands shoved into his jacket pockets, jaw tight. A clerk with gray hair and a neat apron looked up. His name tag read Daniel. "Lena Herrera?" he asked. I nodded and stepped to the counter. My tote bag strap cut into my shoulder. I set the sealed envelope down gently, stamp facing up, and placed my identification beside it. Daniel's eyes flicked to the envelope, then to me, then to Carol. "Thank you," he said, voice even. "How can we help today?" Carol leaned on the glass. "I dropped off a ring for cleaning. We're here to pick it up." Daniel didn't reach for anything. He kept his hands flat on the counter, like he was staying neutral on purpose. "I need to confirm," he said. "Who dropped it off?" "And what was dropped off?" Carol's laugh came out sharp. "Me. Obviously. I brought my daughter-in-law's ring." Daniel nodded once. "And your name is?" Carol lifted her chin. "Carol Whitmore." Daniel turned and pulled a folder from beneath the counter. A red tab stuck out from the top with a handwritten date. He slid it onto the glass between us, slow and deliberate, like a chess move. The two women in puffy coats stopped whispering. I felt it. The air changed when paper hit glass. My heart didn't race. It thudded, steady, like footsteps in a hallway. Daniel opened the folder and angled it toward me, not Carol. "Lena, I need you to confirm something before we proceed." Carol's nails tapped the counter. Tap, tap, tap. Daniel pointed at a line on the intake sheet with the tip of his pen. "This is our intake log. It includes the item description, the timestamp, and the serial number we have on record." Carol's eyes snapped to the page. Eric leaned forward, finally looking at something real instead of the floor. I could see the timestamp clearly. The digits were clean, black, and final. 5:47 post-meridiem. Carol blinked fast. "That can't be right," she said. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "That is the timestamp our system logged for intake. House to and crowned." I swallowed and kept my voice low. "What was the item?" Daniel glanced at the form, then looked straight at me. "A wedding ring, yellow gold, set with one stone." Carol cut in. "Yes, that's what I brought." Daniel's pen hovered again. "And the name on the intake is—" I watched Carol's mouth tighten. She had been so sure this room would bend to her. I slid my palm over the sealed envelope, a small protective motion, and smoothed the edge once. Then I said, "Read it." End quote. Two customers behind us leaned closer without pretending not to. Daniel inhaled, then spoke clearly, like he was reading in court. "The intake name is not Carol Whitmore." I felt Eric shift beside me. Daniel tapped the line one more time and said, "It's Eric Whitmore." Daniel saying Eric's name out loud made the store feel colder. Eric's shoulders rose like he got hit in the chest. Carol turned to him so fast her purse strap slid off her elbow. "Eric," she said, sharp. "Explain." "Eineftedaler." Eric stared at the intake sheet like it was a foreign language. His mouth opened, then shut again. I looked at Daniel. "What does that mean?" Daniel kept his voice level. "It means the person who presented the ring for service identified himself as Eric Whitmore." Carol slapped her palm on the glass. The sound snapped through the store. "That is impossible. He was with me." Eric flinched. The two women behind us went very still, like they didn't want to miss a word. I shifted my tote bag off my shoulder and set it on the floor. I wanted both hands free. I wanted to feel in control of my own body. "Daniel," I said, "does your system show anything else?" He nodded and slid the folder a few inches closer to me. Not her. The red tab scraped softly across the glass. Date written in pen. Ordinary. Heavy. "It shows a contact number," he said. "And a call placed earlier today." My stomach dropped, but my face didn't change. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my phone. I set it down on the counter, screen up, like I was laying down a card. Carol leaned closer, eyes bright. "Give me that." I didn't move the phone. I didn't blink. "Don't touch what isn't yours, Carol." I said it this time quietly. "Don't touch my phone." One of the customers let out a small breath, like they had been holding it. Daniel lifted his hand slightly, a gentle stop. "Lena, may I see your call history?" "Have it." I tapped the screen and opened my recent calls. My thumb moved cleanly, no shaking. I turned the phone toward him, then toward Eric, because I wanted him to see it first. Two entries stood out in a row. Park Ridge Jewelry 342 post-meridiem. Park Ridge Jewelry 3:46 post-meridium. 2 calls, 4 minutes apart. I slid the phone toward Eric. Did you answer them? Eric's eyes flicked to the screen. He swallowed. No. Carol scoffed, loud. He's been working. He's been driving. Then who did? I asked. Eric's face tightened, and I saw it. Not guilt, fear. The kind of fear that shows up when someone else has your leash. Daniel pointed to the intake log again. Our system also notes who signed the intake form. Carol snapped, me. Daniel didn't react. He just turned the page in the folder and revealed a signature line. He angled it toward me, toward Eric, away from Carol. The signature was messy and rushed, but the first letter was clear, N-E. Eric's knees looked like they might give out. He gripped the edge of the counter with both hands. I smoothed the intake sheet once with my palm. Slow, flat, like I was pressing a wrinkle out of fabric, like I was pressing a truth into the open. Eric, I said, tell me what happened. Carol's voice cut in, syrup over steel. We can talk at home. We don't need to do this here. I didn't take my eyes off him. No, we do. Highlight line. Eric's name was on the paper, not Carol's. Eric's throat bobbed. I dropped it off. Carol's head snapped. What? He winced at her tone. Mom told me to. She said it was easier if I did it. That's not what we're talking about, I said, and my voice surprised me. It was calm. It was steady. Why would you drop off a ring for cleaning if she already took it? Eric's eyes darted to Carol. He looked like a kid checking if the teacher was watching. Carol's smile came back, brittle. Because we're being responsible. Lena is overreacting. I leaned in slightly. Daniel, what time did Eric drop it off? Daniel checked the timestamp and read it again. 5:47 post-meridium. That's yesterday, I said. He nodded once. My skin prickled. Yesterday at 5:47, I was at the dental office closing the front desk. I was counting the cash drawer. I was wiping down the counter. I was living a normal life. Eric wasn't with me. Eric breathed out through his nose, like his body gave up on hiding. I went after work, he said, quiet. Carol hissed, Eric. He didn't look at her. He looked at the intake sheet, then at my bare ring finger. I thought it was the real ring, he said. The store went silent in a way that felt physical, like velvet dropped over the room. I stared at him. You thought? He nodded, small. Mom said you left it on the kitchen counter. She said you were careless. She told me to take it before you lost it. Carol's jaw clenched. I was trying to protect your marriage. I kept my voice low. You told him I was careless. She lifted her chin. You are. I felt something in me go cold and clean. Not anger, not panic, clarity. Because if Eric dropped off a ring yesterday, and Carol took a ring this morning, then there were only 2 possibilities. Either Carol had 2 rings, or Eric did. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out my key ring. A small metal key hung there, dull and familiar. I held it up between us, tiny and sharp as a pin. Eric, I said, do you still have the key to my desk drawer? His eyes widened. Carol's hand jerked toward him, then stopped, like she remembered we were being watched. Daniel cleared his throat gently. Lena, if there is a dispute, we can hold any items until ownership is established. I nodded once without looking away from Eric. Hold it, I said. Do not release anything. Example. Daniel gave a single, firm nod. Understood. Carol's voice rose, tight. This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing the family. I turned to her, finally. You embarrassed it when you lied. Highlight line. 2 calls, 4 minutes apart, and neither was Eric. Carol's eyes flashed. You don't know what you're talking about. I moved my phone closer to myself and tapped the screen again. I opened the call details, then scrolled. Slow. My fingertip dragged down the glass like I was pulling a curtain. There was a 3rd entry I hadn't noticed at first. An incoming call from Eric's number. Yesterday. 5:52 post-meridium. 5 minutes after the intake timestamp. My chest tightened, not from the call, from what it meant. I looked at Eric, and my voice went almost flat. Why did you call me 5 minutes after you dropped off my ring? Eric's lips parted. Carol's hand clamped around his wrist under the counter edge, just visible for a second, like a warning squeeze. Eric's eyes flicked to her hand, then back to me. And he whispered, because I realized it wasn't yours. Eric's whisper stayed, lodged in my throat like a fishbone. I kept my face still while my fingers gripped the edge of the glass counter. Daniel closed the red tab folder with a soft snap. He slid it back toward himself like he was protecting it from all of us. "Lena," he said, "I can place a hold on the item. No release, no cleaning, no changes." I nodded once. My mouth felt dry. "Put it on hold." Carol's laugh came out loud enough to bounce off the display cases. "This is insane. You're acting like we stole something." Eric's eyes stayed on my bare hand. He looked like he wanted to fold into the floor. I smoothed the intake sheet one last time with my palm, slow and flat. Then I pulled my phone back to me and slipped it into my pocket. I needed my hands empty again. "Eric," I said, "come outside. Now." Carol stepped forward like she could block him with her body. "We are not doing this in public." I turned to her. "You made it public when you took it." Her mouth opened, then closed. For the first time, she didn't have a clean line ready. Eric followed me out anyway. The bell over the door chimed behind us, bright and cheerful, like it had no idea what it had just witnessed. The parking lot was lit by one streetlight that made everything look washed out. Eric's breath came out in cloudy bursts. Mine came out short and controlled. I leaned my hip against my car and pulled my keys from my coat pocket. Metal against metal. Familiar weight. My hand stopped shaking the moment I felt the key teeth. "Talk," I said. Eric rubbed his palms together like he was trying to warm them up. "I thought I was helping." End quote. "You thought you were helping," I repeated, and my voice stayed even. "You dropped off a ring yesterday. Then your mother took a ring today, and you realized 5 minutes later it wasn't mine." Eric's jaw tightened. "It looked like yours." "But you knew," I said. "You called me," he swallowed. "I didn't want to call. Mom told me not to." A cold line ran down my spine. Not fear. Recognition. Carol wants to manage the story, not the truth. I opened my car door and set my tote bag on the seat. I needed space to breathe. I shut the door again, slow and deliberate, like a boundary. "Where did you get the ring you dropped off?" I asked. Eric stared at the asphalt. Mom handed it to me. My grip tightened around my keys. "From where?" He flinched at my tone. "From her purse. She said you left it out." "That's not an answer," I said. "From where did she get it?" Eric's eyes finally lifted to mine, wet and tired. "From your drawer." My stomach went tight, hard as a fist. I pictured my desk at home, the drawer that stuck sometimes, the little key I kept on my own ring of keys, the place I put things when I needed them safe. I held my keys up between us. "This key," I said, "the one you just admitted she used." Eric's shoulders sagged. "She said you wouldn't mind." I let out one short laugh that didn't have humor in it. She never asks what I mind. The store door opened behind us. Carol stepped out, heels clicking on concrete like punctuation. She stopped under the streetlight, face calm, eyes bright. "You're poisoning him against me," she said. Eric turned slightly toward her without thinking, like a reflex. I watched that reflex and felt something settle inside me, heavy and final. I pointed at Eric. "Did you make a copy of my desk key?" Eric went pale. "No." Carol's smile sharpened. "Lena, this is what I mean. You spin stories. It's classed as Namer." I stepped closer to her, just enough to make her stop moving. "You told him I was careless. You told him to take my ring. You told him not to call me." Carol lifted her shoulders in a small shrug. "I told him to protect your marriage." I stared at her purse. Same leather, same heavy hardware, same neat zipper. The purse looked like a locked mouth. "Then open it," I said. Carol's eyes flashed. "No." Eric's head snapped to her. "Mom." She turned on him. "Do not start. It's quitting to." He flinched again, that leash pull fear returning. I didn't push for the purse. Not yet. I already had what I needed for the next move. I reached into my coat pocket and touched the edge of the stamped envelope I had left in the car. Thick paper, embossed stamp, proof I could hold without anyone's permission. I looked back at Daniel through the window. He was watching us, not curious, just alert. Procedure. I leaned toward Eric, voice low. "Get in your car. Go home. Bring me my desk drawer keychain. The one you used to have." Eric blinked. "What?" "The one you used to have," I repeated slower. "The one you stopped carrying." Carol snapped. "He is not doing anything." Eric hesitated, eyes bouncing between us. I could see him weighing comfort against consequence. I softened my voice, not my stance. Eric, if you want to fix anything, you start by telling the truth with your hands, not with words. If it used scenically, highlight line. Carol wouldn't open her purse under one streetlight. Eric swallowed and nodded once. He turned and walked toward his car like his legs were borrowed. Carol stepped after him sharp. Eric, come back. He didn't. Carol's face stayed composed until his door shut. Then her expression dropped, and I saw something raw under it. Not sadness. Calculation. You think you're smart, she said. I didn't answer. I just looked at her, and in that silence I felt the power shift a fraction. She leaned closer, voice low enough to be private but still angry. That ring is family. It belongs where I say it belongs. My mouth went dry. It belongs on my hand. She laughed again, but it sounded thin now. Not if you can't prove it. I reached into my car, grabbed the stamped envelope, and held it up between us without opening it. The embossed stamp caught the streetlight and glowed. Carol's eyes locked on it. Her pupils tightened like she recognized a threat she hadn't planned for. What is that? She demanded. A record, I said, and kept my tone calm. One you can't sweet-talk. Highlight line. Eric called 5 minutes after the intake timestamp. Carol's lips pressed into a hard line. You won't win this. I watched her turn and walk back toward the store door, heels clicking in steady beats. She didn't look back, but her hand clutched her purse strap like it was the last thing she controlled. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a new message from an unknown number. A photo loaded slowly, then sharpened. It was my desk drawer, open, and my real wedding ring sitting inside it. And under the photo, one line of text said, You left it here. I'm keeping it safe. I drove home with the photo still open on my phone. The image of my desk drawer looked clean and staged. I set my keys on the kitchen table corner and kept my coat on. The stamped envelope sat in my tote bag, heavy as a brick, and I could feel it through the fabric when I pressed my palm against it. Eric came in 10 minutes later, breathing hard. He held out a small key ring with 2 keys and a grocery store tag. His hand shook when he let it drop into my palm. Mom told me to stop carrying it, he said. I closed my fingers around the keys until the metal bit me. When? After the wedding, he whispered. She said you were forgetful. Carol's voice cut through the doorway like a knife. Because you are. She walked in with her purse and her perfect posture. Her eyes went to the keys in my hand, then to my phone, still lit up. That photo proves I'm right, she said. You left it unsecured. You opened my drawer, I replied. Carol's smile didn't move. I kept it safe. I have a do-end. Eric stood behind her like a shadow that couldn't decide where to fall. I turned my phone so Eric could see the message line again. You left it here. I'm keeping it safe. I tapped the timestamp. The message was sent at 5:12 post-meridium. 5:12 was when Carol was supposedly running errands. 5:12 was also when the front door camera always caught the mail carrier and nobody else. I didn't say that out loud. I just slid my phone into my coat pocket and picked up the stamped envelope from my tote bag. We're going, I said. Carol blinked. Where? To the courthouse, I said, and the word tasted like cold air. Eric's head lifted. Lena, please. I'm done pleading, I said. I'm done guessing. Carol's eyes narrowed. You won't win this. I walked to the door and opened it. The hinge squeaked in the same spot it always did. I held it open a beat too long. Get in the car, I told Eric. He moved. Not fast, not brave, but he moved. Carol followed, heels clicking down the porch steps, purse strapped tight against her body. The streetlight at the corner made her face look washed out, like a photo that had been edited too hard. At the courthouse, the air smelled like wet coats and floor cleaner. The hallway outside the clerk window was a narrow line of people holding paper. A father bounced a toddler on his hip. A woman in a navy sweater gripped a folder with both hands like it was a shield. Carol walked to the front like she belonged there. Excuse me, she said, bright. Family matter. The clerk looked up without smiling. Her name tag said Marissa. She pointed to a sign taped to the counter. Take a number. Carol's mouth tightened. She pulled a small slip from the dispenser anyway and smoothed it between her fingers like she could flatten reality. I took a number 2, 37. I sat on a hard bench and watched the electronic board click through names. Eric sat beside me with his knees bouncing. Carol stood, never sitting, pacing in a small loop, purse clutched like a prize. When our number came up, Carol moved first. She slid a folded packet under the glass like a dealer pushing chips. "I need to file paperwork," she said. "My daughter-in-law has property that belongs to my family." Marissa glanced at the packet, then looked at me. "Ma'am, is that correct?" I was no. Carol answered for me. "Yes." I stepped closer and set my stamped envelope on the counter, stamp facing up. I placed my identification beside it. My fingers didn't shake. "I'd like to add this," I said. Marissa's eyes flicked to the embossed stamp, then back to my face. "What is it?" "A statement from a jeweler," I said. "Notarized." Carol gave a short laugh. "A jeweler? This is not a court matter." Marissa slid the envelope toward herself with 2 fingers and turned it over. She read my name, then looked at Carol's packet again. "Miss Whitmore," she said, calm, "what exactly are you claiming?" Carol leaned in, voice syrupy. "That ring is a family piece. My son's wife is hiding it. She is unstable." Eric flinched beside me. His knee stopped bouncing for 1 second, then started again. Marissa lifted her hand slightly. "Stop. Control. I'm going to open this," she said, looking at me. I nodded once. She broke the seal with a small metal letter opener. The paper tore with a clean sound that made Carol's shoulders stiffen. Marissa pulled out a single page with a raised stamp at the bottom and a line of handwriting across the top. She read silently for a few seconds. Her eyes moved left to right, then stopped. Carol's nails tapped the counter. Tap, tap, tap. Marissa cleared her throat and read one sentence out loud. Flat and official. "This office confirms the intake of 1 wedding ring under Eric Whitmore, with serial number recorded, held without release." Eric made a small sound in his throat, like a swallowed cough. The father with the toddler behind us stopped bouncing. The hallway got quiet in that sharp courthouse way. Carol's face went pale, then flushed red. "That's not relevant," she snapped. Marissa looked up. "It's directly relevant." Carol leaned closer, voice rising. "You don't understand. That ring is mine to manage." I watched Marissa's eyes narrow, not with anger, but with procedure. "Ma'am," she said, "you are attempting to file a claim while contradictory documentation is present." Carol's jaw clenched. Contradictory. Marissa set Carol's packet back under the glass, pushed it toward her, and kept her other hand on my page. "I'm not accepting this filing today." Eric's breath hitched. Carol stared like she couldn't process the word no. Marissa's tone stayed even. "If you believe a crime occurred, you can speak to the front desk about a report. Otherwise, this is a private dispute." Carol's head snapped toward me, eyes burning. "You did this." I didn't move. I just smoothed the edge of the notarized page once, slow, in front of her. The habit felt different now, not nervous, deliberate. Highlight line. Marissa read Eric's name in the courthouse hallway. Carol's voice dropped into a hiss. "Give me your phone." I blinked. "No." And it was. Her hand shot out toward my coat pocket anyway. Eric grabbed her wrist, finally, and held it still. His grip looked clumsy, but it was a grip. Carol's eyes swung to him, shocked. "Eric!" He swallowed hard. "Stop!" Highlight line. Eric grabbed Carol's wrist at the clerk window. Carol yanked her arm free and stepped back, purse pressed to her chest. Her gaze flicked to the zipper, then to me, like she was weighing whether to open it in public. She didn't. Instead, she pulled her phone out and tapped fast. Her screen reflected in the courthouse glass like a second face. A second later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw a new message from the same unknown number. One line this time. "If you want your ring back, come alone." The message sat on my screen like a wet thumbprint. "If you want your ring back, come alone." Eric reached for my phone, then stopped himself halfway. His hand hovered in the air, useless and uncertain. "Don't go," he said. Carol was already walking away down the courthouse hallway, heels steady, purse tight against her ribs. She didn't look back. She didn't have to. She believed she could still steer the next scene. I slid my phone into my pocket and stared at the clerk window glass until my reflection looked like a stranger. "No," I said, low. "I'm not going alone." Eric blinked. "But the message is a test," I said. "And I'm done taking them. I have don't life." Outside, the air bit my cheeks. The sky was dark, and the parking lot lights made the courthouse steps look too bright. Eric followed me to the car like he was afraid I would vanish if he looked away. I sat in the driver's seat but didn't start the engine. I pulled the stamped envelope from my tote bag and held it in my lap. The embossed stamp caught the dome light and glowed. My thumb traced the raised edge once, then stopped. I had smoothed papers for days like it could fix people. I could feel that habit trying to start again in my hands. I didn't let it. "Tell me the truth," I said. Eric's shoulders sagged. He stared at the steering wheel like it had answers. "Mom said the ring was family," he whispered. "She said you didn't understand what you married into." I kept my voice even. "And you believed her?" He nodded once, miserable. "She told me to take the key. She said it was temporary." A line of cold clarity ran through me again. Temporary meant until I stopped fighting. Temporary meant until I accepted my place. I looked at my bare ring finger. The pale line across my skin looked like a missing piece of myself. The scratch on the finger wasn't from the ring. It was from the way I had rubbed at the spot when I felt cornered. "I swapped it because I didn't trust her," I said. Eric's head snapped up. "You, what?" "I swapped it," I repeated, slower. "After midnight, I wrapped the real ring and put it where she couldn't reach it." Eric exhaled like he had been punched and relieved at the same time. "Then what is she holding?" "A story," I said. "And a fake she thinks I care about." His eyes filled, and he looked away fast. "I'm sorry." I believed he was sorry. I also knew sorry had never stopped Carol before. Sorry had never stopped him either. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. One more message. "Meet me at Park Ridge Jewelry, 8:30. Bring the papers." I stared at the screen. Carol wanted a stage with good lighting and witnesses she could control. She wanted to watch me fold in public. I typed back with my thumb. One sentence. "I will be there. Daniel will be there too." Eric leaned closer. "You're calling the jeweler." "I'm calling the truth," I said. At 8:25, the jewelry store windows glowed warm against the cold sidewalk. Eric and I walked in together, not arm in arm. Not romantic, just aligned. Daniel stood behind the counter, neat apron on, red tab folder already out. He nodded at me like he had been expecting the storm. Carol arrived at 8:31, 1 minute late, like she wanted to show she controlled the clock. Her purse strap was looped tight around her wrist. She smiled at Daniel like he was staff at her house. "I'm here for my daughter-in-law's ring," she said. Daniel's tone stayed businesslike. "We have an item on hold, no release." Carol's smile thinned. "I told you I have authority." Daniel looked at me. "Lena." I pulled my identification from my wallet and set it on the glass. Then I set my phone down beside it, screen dark. Carol's eyes went to the phone like it was a weapon. "You're recording." "I'm documenting," I said. Daniel slid the red tab folder forward and opened it to the intake log. He pointed to the serial number line without flair, without drama. "That serial number," he said, "matches the ring I have on hold." End quote. Carol's lips parted. "No." Daniel didn't argue. He reached under the counter and brought up a small, clear pouch, sealed, with a label. Inside, a ring sat on white foam. Carol leaned in, eyes hungry. "There, give it to me." Daniel didn't move the pouch closer. "I will show it to Lena," he said, "and only Lena can authorize release." Carol's voice rose. "This is ridiculous. That ring is family property." Daniel kept his eyes on the paper. The intake name was Eric Whitmore. "The authorization is Lena Herrera." Carol snapped her head toward Eric. "Tell him." Eric's hands clenched at his sides. He looked at her purse. Then he looked at me. His throat worked once. "No," he said. The word was small, but it landed. Carol's face flushed, and I saw anger break through her neat control. "You ungrateful," she started. I cut in, calm. "Open your purse." Carol froze. "Excuse me." "The ring you took this morning," I said. "Open your purse." Carol's eyes flashed. "You don't get to order me." Daniel's voice stayed neutral. "Ma'am, if you presented an item here, we will not accept any disputes without the item present." Carol's jaw clenched. Her hand moved to the zipper and stopped. She looked around the store like she expected backup, like she expected a crowd to side with her. There were 2 other customers near the display case. They weren't close enough to hear every word, but they were close enough to watch body language, close enough to notice when someone refused a simple request. Carol's fingers trembled against the zipper. Then she opened the purse. She pulled out a velvet box and placed it on the counter with a hard thud. She opened it with a sharp flick. Inside was a ring. It looked right at a glance. Gold, 1 stone. the shape of a symbol. I didn't lean in. I didn't reach for it. I just looked at Daniel. "Can you compare?" I asked. Daniel nodded. He took the velvet box, then glanced at the intake log and the sealed pouch. "The stone size is different," he said after one careful look, "and this ring has no matching serial record with us." Carol's face went blank. Not confused, calculating. I picked up my phone and turned it face up. "That's not mine," I said. "Highlight line." Daniel said, "This ring has no matching record." Carol's voice went tight. "You're accusing me." "I'm stating a fact," I said. Eric stepped forward, finally placing his body between us, not as a divider but as a line. "Mom," he said, and his voice shook. "Give it back." Carol's eyes darted. Her hand tightened on the purse strap. "I did give it back." Daniel slid the sealed pouch closer to me, not touching my identification. "Lena, do you authorize release?" I stared at the pouch. My chest didn't swell. My hands didn't tremble. It was just a decision, clean and plain. "I do," I said. Daniel broke the seal, handed me the ring with a small cloth, and watched me like he wanted to see the moment land. I held it between my fingers. The gold felt cold at first, real, heavy. I turned it slightly, and the tiny scratch on the inside edge caught the light. The scratch only I knew. Carol's eyes followed it like a predator tracking a moving thing. "That belongs with us," she said, almost pleading now. "It belongs with me," I replied. "Highlight line." I slid my ring on without asking anyone. I walked out of the store without another sentence. Eric followed. Carol stayed inside, standing too straight, holding a velvet box that had lost its power. At home, I went straight to the kitchen table corner. I set the ring down on the wood for 1 second and watched it sit there, quiet, ordinary, mine. I didn't smooth any papers. I didn't tidy the mail. I didn't fix the scene. I washed my hands at the sink and dried them slowly. Then I picked up the ring and slid it onto my finger. The band settled against my skin like it had been waiting. Eric stood in the doorway, eyes red. "What happens now?" he asked. I looked at him, then at the ring, then back at him. "Now you choose," I said. "But I'm not negotiating my boundaries again." I turned off the kitchen light, left the mail unsmoothed on the table, and went upstairs with my hand closed around something that finally felt like mine.